Welcome to 24/7 World Radio Podcast with Brother Eric John Phelps on this July 16th, a Wednesday, 2025. My guest today is Brother George Widger, as he brings us all of his new developments and discoveries, which are very beneficial to us. And so, Brother George, welcome to the broadcast.
Well, thank you, Brother Eric. As always, it is a pleasure to be on with you.
It's always a pleasure to have you, Brother George. So, what do you have for us today?
Well, my scripture verse is 1 Peter 2, verses 13 and 14. 1 Peter 2, verses 13 and 14, which says, "Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme, or unto governors, unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of them that do well." Okay, there's a parallel passage in Romans 13, the first, say, 5 or 6 verses. And over the decades and centuries, people have misinterpreted this verse. And I'll just talk about the First Peter 2 one, saying basically, if the government tells you to do something, you have to comply if you call yourself a Christian. So that means that they say, turn in your guns. You have to do that. Turn in your gold. Turn in the Jews. Get a vet. Shut your business down. Wear a mask. Or operate your business at 50% because, hey, we're doing this for your own good. This is for public health. This is for public safety, or whatever the case may be. And you're being disobedient. You're not obeying the word of God unless you comply. So, what is your response to that?
Well, I've had to deal with that for years. And I had to deal with that first when I was in Bible college. And the first guy I had to deal with that with was my professor, my history professor, who was a very arrogant individual. His name was Rembert Carter, who got his PhD in history from Edinburgh in Scotland. And we were in a little clinic kind of thing, a meeting. He would have his classes and he would have break up in groups. Well, we had a group meeting one day and talked about obeying the government. And I said, well, Doc, I said, when is the time when you disobey the government, other than, of course, when they prohibit you from preaching the gospel or things along those lines? And he says, when they institute the mark of the beast. I said, well, Doc, we're not going to be here for that. The church is not going to be here for the last half of the 70th week of Daniel, called the Great Tribulation. So why would that be even relevant to this discussion? He didn't like that. Of course, I wasn't your typical 18-year-old just out of high school and all enamored with his greatness. I had been in the Air Force for 5 years. I was 23 at the time. And it made me dig. And what I found was this, is that Romans 13 in no way defends tyranny, in no way defends absolutism. And it merely is there to tell us that we are to submit to this authority for our good, because God instituted government for good. Mankind needs to be governed in that. He needs to be punished for doing evil and rewarded for doing good, as 1 Peter 2 says. So, again, we're to render custom to whom custom is due. We're to pay the lawful taxes that we would owe. But we're not to volunteer to pay an excise tax that we don't owe, like the income tax. We don't have to volunteer for that. So, it's very clear. And there's some great exegesis on this in Rutherford's great work titled Lex Rex, or The Law is the King. Because we only have white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, and Baptist Western civilization because of those Baptists and Protestants who were Calvinistic and Puritans. And what the Puritans were known for, and these were the greatest Christians, in my estimation, of the last 500 years. What they were known for is two things: the providence of God, that the Lord worketh all things after the counsel of his will within his providence, of course, Ephesians 1:11. and the use of the sword of just defense, or the resistance of political tyranny. Under Hebrews 12:4, you've not resisted unto blood, striving against sin. And sin oftentimes is promoted by those in government, which in the name of government seek to mandate us to sin with the statutes that they pass. So no, what we do is here we are refusing to. Hey, George, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, I can. Well, I hope you didn't get bad news.
No, I just had to put some things in place. I had to give somebody a spanking verbally on the phone. So sometimes people deserve that, and I give it to them when they deserve it. Just like I get it when I deserve it. But everything is pretty well straightened out now. So why don't we go ahead, brother?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know how to respond to that. So I, are we streaming?
We're streaming, George. We're recording now. So that's what I
Okay.
said. I'm back. It's re-recording. Okay.
Okay. So I just wanted to. Oh, yes. It says on the top, meeting is being recorded. Oh, okay. So I guess I better be on my best
Yeah,
behavior.
when you hear that, it says recording proceeded. Now that means we're being recorded. Okay.
All right, fair enough. So I understand last week or so you've had Brother Fernando on, Castaneda,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
you and he were discussing the situation in, I guess, Kerrville, Texas, at that Camp Mystic that took place, I guess, on the 4th of July. So, what, 10, 12, today's the 6th, today is the 6th, 12, wow, was that 12 days ago? And so as you and I think Brother Fernando were discussing, you're talking probably about 300 deaths, not just from the camp, but from the surrounding areas. Now, since he lives there and he worked there and he knows several of the players involved, I'm not going to belabor the point. However, I just wanted to make a couple of observations. They're saying that perhaps as many as 300 people died in that and in the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
And so, and I really don't have anything new to say, but I just want to accentuate the fact who the governor of Texas is, Greg Abbott. He's a Roman Catholic. So nothing goes on in his state without his knowledge, whether it's a flood or tornado, shooting, whatever. Just like Ron DeSantis in Florida. Anything that goes on there, he knows about it ahead of time.
It's like Gavin Newsom in California. Hmm. Yep.
Or Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania.
That's correct. That Jew's working for the Pope.
Okay, so as I said, and something I've noticed over the last decade or so, say 8, 10 years, is just talking about the United States, and this is true in other countries, is there seem to be these disasters, whether you're talking hurricanes, floods, fires, whatever, all over the country, where they seem to undercount the number of people who died. And they say, well, it's not that bad. We'll get help there immediately. Whether you're talking about, Kerrville, Texas, or Paradise, California, or Lahaina, Lahaina, Hawaii, is they say people die as a tragedy, as unfortunate. And I guess there was nothing we could do about it. Oh, well, these sort of things happen. Or it's due to climate change.
Yeah.
So I know I'm supposed to be presenting the material. However, this is supposed to be interactive. So,
No, I didn't know when you're finished. If you're
oh,
finished,
oh,
why don't you,
okay,
George, you need to say to me, okay, I made my point here now, Eric. Do you have something to say? Because
okay, I made
oftentimes
my
you
point.
pause and I'm wondering, are you done or is it my turn to speak? So just let me know when you want to comment and I'll be happy to give it. Okay.
Okay, well, the ball is in your court.
Okay. Well, what we have is we have a criminal emergency war powers military government in District of Columbia, District of Catholics, District of Coloreds since March 9th, 1933. Okay. And they do whatever they want to do because they're protected by the papacy and his secret societies run by the Jesuit order. And so there's no one except individuals every now and then, such as ourselves, that tell the truth about it and resist it. But I don't know of anybody with any political or financial power that wants to do something about it. They don't exist. Because if they did, they would support me after 25 years of being on the radio. But they don't. These wealthy white men don't give me a dime. So what I'm saying is that this is going to continue to happen. It's appalling, it's terrible, but nothing's going to change until there's repentance, turning towards God, be able then to resist the devil once we're saved. So it's terrible. I feel so bad for those poor little innocent girls, those two dear little white girls that were deliberately killed because they're white and probably liberal Roman Catholic as well as heretic Protestant and Baptist. It was just another kill off of the Jesuit order controlling the weather, overseen by the Jesuit provincial of whoever he was, where it was, one of the four. So it's pitiful, it's terrible, and nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody wants to start another political party. Nobody wants to call for a declaration of independence in their state or county. Nobody wants to do the right thing. So as a result, we just have to tell the truth and wait. And maybe the Lord will raise up someone someplace to begin to seriously resist it with their power and their money. So go ahead, George.
Well, something okay. This appears to be part of a pattern that has existed for a long time. When I say they seem to undercount the number of fatalities, not just in Kerrville, Texas, but in Lahaina, in Asheville, North Carolina, from the floods, from the hurricanes in October of last year. But you can go back to, say, the Dresden bombings back in February of 1945, 80 years ago. They say only, if we go to Wikipedia, they say only about 25,000 people were killed in the bombings.
Yeah, what a lie. It was more like a million because there were a whole bunch of soldiers, German soldiers, recuperating from being wounded or sacrificed on the Western Front by Gehlen, Reinhard Gehlen. And so they came back and were recuperating and they were all killed. So there's estimates that it's 750,000 to a million people killed in the Dresden bombing that took place by the English at night and the Americans and during the day. Horrible.
Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't matter. Well, they're Nazis and they deserved whatever they got.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
maybe
of
they'll say
course,
the same thing about us when we get bombed and mass murdered and sent off to the camps. We'll say that we deserved it because, we raised up the new right. Yeah, something like that.
or they're Trump supporters, or they're MAGA, or their parents were MAGA supporters, or whatever.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I wasn't going
With
to
the
bring that.
principles of MAGA and the principles of Trump being absolutely right, addressing legitimate grievances, whereas the socialist, communist, left-wing feminists, feminazis hated any sort of individuality or manhood or alpha males. God forbid we should have any of them to continue on in their destruction of the middle class and rendering us all in penury and poverty stricken, subject to these feminist women and the left wing socialist communist blacks and the left wing socialist communist Jews, and most assuredly this Roman papacy that runs it all with their secret societies. Just shut up and submit and be a good boy. And I'm not doing it. You're not doing it. We're just going to resist unto blood, striving against sin. And I don't care what they think.
Well, you know, it's intriguing that we mentioned the numbers that this came out of, was it 4 or 5 years ago, out of places like Michigan and New York State, in that they're undercounting the number of people who allegedly died of COVID, specifically in New York State when Andrew Cuomo was governor there, because you had at least thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who were murdered in the convalescent homes at his behest with remdesivir or uh, or
We
ventilators.
need to remember to tell our listeners Andrew Cuomo is a Roman Catholic Jesuit grad from Fordham. He's nothing but a tyrant and a traitor, like his brother Chrissy. So we have to notice and remember those things. That's why they do what they do. They're told to do it by men of power who are Jesuits or subject to them immediately. Go ahead.
And okay, so Andrew got his undergrad degree from Fordham. Fredo or Chris got his law degree from Fordham. And of course, they're both sons of Mario Cuomo, who was also a devout Roman Catholic. So this is basically how is this any different from medieval feudalism?
Not at all. It's the same thing. It's what we've been saying, George. We're going back to Dark Age socialist communism. Feudalism's communism. You have the cartel capitalists, you have everybody's poor, living from day to day. You have no land ownership. We don't have any property ownership here. You know how I know that? Because if you don't pay your property tax, you can be gone now, boy. We'll find somebody else to be a good slave to pay that property tax. We don't have any property ownership here. We're back in the dark ages right now.
Okay, so speaking of feudalism, this is not just isolated to New York State. You have the same situation in California where
It's
you
the
have
whole
Jerry Brown.
country. It's the whole country, George. It's every one of these states. Every state's been reduced to a Jesuit reduction. Every one of
Mhm.
them's a reduction, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, and have their natural resources stripped from them.
And of course, and this is not just confined to just the United States. You have this situation up in Canada recently where Justin Castor Trudeau, the alleged son of Pierre, just resigned earlier this year.
Yeah.
So, so they couldn't find anybody qualified to run Canada besides Justin.
After he destroyed Canada, bringing in all those blacks and all those Muslims and all those Sikhs, everybody else to race mix the white people of Canada. By the way, I have a tremendous document from one of my students. He's a historian, and he proves that the Jesuits, in destroying a host of empires and peoples, forcefully race mixed it. And when they race mixed it, that was a key ingredient for the destruction of that nation or empire. And I'll send it to anybody that wants it. I'll email it to you. Go ahead, brother.
Well, I know we've discussed the whole Trudeau situation.
Hmm.
So there's a debate as to who Justin's father is. Was it Pierre or was it Fidel Castro? Well, the answer is yes. Well, and
There,
of course,
there's his legal father and his natural father. Is that what you're saying?
well, they're both Jesuits. I mean, they're both. I mean, they're. I mean, how many different Catholics? I mean, how many Jesuit schools did Fidel go to? At least two
Yeah.
in Cuba,
Yep.
and
Straight in Havana. He went to Berlin. I did a thing on him. I have him in my book, Vatican Assassins, the places he went to. Mhm.
okay. So Justin went to LeBouf in Ottawa, I believe, which is a Jesuit school,
Yep.
and his purported father Pierre also was trained by the Jesuits. Now, according to our friend Kathy O'Brien, Pierre was actually a colored priest.
Oh, that's right. In her book, Transformation of America. Yeah. Mhm.
So he wasn't just a short robe priest. He wasn't a lay Jesuit. He was a full on priest, according to her. Now, something I have mentioned before was that this happened 4 years ago. And Justin, there's a video of him allegedly receiving the COVID shot where he's just has his undershirt on and he has something that appears to be a Maltese cross on his, I guess, left arm. Now, somebody responded to that and said, no, that's not a Maltese cross. It just appears to be one. It's like some sort
Who's
of
this? Who has this cross?
Justin.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right. So maybe he's not a Knight of Malta.
Oh, I'm sure he is. He's a political power. He's a millionaire. He doesn't need anybody or anything except the papacy. He does exactly what he's told, no matter how the Canadians hate what he's done.
Mhm.
Of course I'm sure he's a knight.
And of course, something I mentioned to you probably over a year ago is somebody sent me a picture of Louis Pasteur, is like pasteurization,
Hmm.
and he's wearing a big, I'm not sure what the context was, but he's wearing what appears to be a Maltese cross. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Pasteur was a Knight of Malta.
Well, he
He
was
could
a
have just,
French Roman Catholic, and
yes.
the damage that he did, and for the writings that were circulated by the Jesuits to control the press and the medical inquisition, he most assuredly was rewarded for that, like Reagan was rewarded for recognizing sovereign state of Vatican City in 1984 and given the high honor of being a Knight of Malta in 1989. So I have no doubt that that's probably the case. If our history wasn't so bastardized and censored and corrupted, we would know for sure. So we just have to make some certain presumptions and based upon those that he was affiliated with.
Well, I mean, Louis could have been on his way to a costume party, and that was the only thing he could find at the thrift store.
A man of that influence and that power, I doubt it.
Okay, well, I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. So, well, and well, you mentioned Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, Ronald Reagan. You're cutting out on me, George. I can't hear you.
He was actually knighted while he was still president. This was on
Okay,
January the 13th,
okay, George,
1989. So he was in office for another.
You just cut out on me. So whatever you did, try not to do it again. Just stay up near your computer and speaker. Speak slowly. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Much better. Take your time.
Okay. So Ronald Reagan was knighted on January the 13th, 1989. So his last week in office, he was a knight of St. John of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And he was still actually a sitting president while he received this honor.
Mhm.
And you made reference to the fact that Reagan officially recognized the Holy See in 1984. Specifically, he did that on January the 10th, 1984. So 41 plus years ago.
And for our listeners, it's just not he's recognizing a religion. He's recognizing a political sovereign entity, a sovereign nation state called the sovereign state of Vatican City. And that's what he recognizes. So the Senate and he can have a treaty between themselves and the Pope. Because
Okay, and
all treaties have to be approved by the Senate.
okay, so at the time it would have been John Paul II.
Mm-hmm.
And for what it's worth, now as I said, the United States officially recognized the Vatican. It officially
Sovereign
restored.
state of Vatican City. That's the proper
I,
name, George. That's the name of
okay,
the
I beg
country.
the sovereign nation of Vatican City. Well,
Sovereign
thank you.
state of Vatican City. That's the
Yes.
name of the country. Okay.
All right. So 33 years later, on January the 10th, 2017, Anthony Fauci was speaking at Georgetown University. So this is 10 days before Donald Trump took office the first time. And he said sometime during the Trump administration, there will be a surprise outbreak.
Yeah.
So
Your
Fauci,
point. What's your point, George? Go ahead.
well, he made this declaration exactly 33 years after the United States officially recognized the Vatican.
Yeah. I find that intriguing. Mhm.
So
When little
did he?
Jesuit Anthony Fauci, the mouthpiece for the Jesuit order for what the Institutes of Health, said this thing and warned everybody this is what's going to happen. And yet nobody wants to draw the conclusion that how did this Jesuit know that? Or Dr. Brian Artis, he's completely backed off of blaming the Jesuit order now for the murder, which is very disappointing. And so there's no one of any wealth and power and influence that's blaming the Jesuit order anymore. It's just little old Anthony Fauci. And he's really nobody. It doesn't matter who educated him, doesn't matter who he runs with, it just matter that that's what he said. And it doesn't matter that Trump and Biden were both behind him, which tells you Jesuits run them both. Go ahead, George.
Well, you know, Fauci started working for the National Institute of Health in 1968. So, how many administrations was that? Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, first Bush, Clinton, second Bush, Obama, Trump, by 11. So he served 11 administrations
Mm-hmm.
over the course of more than half a century.
And of course, he is a member of the well the group that's the oh come on, they're always in power and they never can be fired. Um, oh, it's everybody in political power. It's a group. It'll come to me
Well,
here, but it's
you've mentioned them before. So Anthony Stephen Fauci, retired in 2022, having worked for the federal government for 54 years. Now he's an adjunct professor at Georgetown University.
mhm. Yeah. The Jesuits are rewarding him with a professorship, and all the stupid people are sending their children to that place to get brainwashed, Jesuitized, socialized, so that they can be good little slaves for the Jesuit orders, kingdom, the Holy Roman 14th Amendment American Empire. Hmm. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, before we proceed, I have some housekeeping to do. There are some prominent people who've died in the last month or so, and I'd just like to mourn their losses.
Hmm.
I don't mean to, be impertinent. Uh, do you know who David
You're not
Gergen?
impertinent. I celebrate when any of these tyrants die. I rejoice in their death because now they're not going to persecute us anymore. So I rejoice in the death of all these men in the past that have served the papacy, that have oppressed us, taxed us to death, killed us in foreign wars for nothing. I rejoice in their death. Sure, I do. And so, anyway, it's like I was working for one contractor one time, building chicken houses. He said to me, Eric, he said, I wish about 500 of those guys had died down there in Washington. I said, well, I do too. But they didn't happen, and it just continued on.
Okay, so a recent death was David Richmond Gergen, who lived from the 9th of May, 1942, died on July the 10th. So this was last week or so. You know who David Gergen
I
was?
sure do.
Okay, so you probably so he served in several different administrations: Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Clinton.
Yep.
Now that strikes me as odd because the first three, uh, Nixon, Ford, and Reagan, were Republicans, but Bill Clinton was a Democrat. That strikes me as intriguing. Now he served in different capacities: communication director, press secretary, speechwriter, things like that. So he first came to DC in 1971 as a speechwriter for Richard Nixon. So he would have rubbed elbows with the father, John McLaughlin, SJ, and Pat Buchanan.
Yep.
I believe McLaughlin was still a priest at the time.
Yep. And he had his
So
McLaughlin report later on, and Pat
he
Buchanan
would,
would be featured on it many times.
yes.
Hmm.
So I guess McLaughlin was laicized in the 70s, i.e., he left the order, or actually, he was cleared by his.
Yeah, he just ceased to be a practicing priest, but he was still a Jesuit of the short robe, and he was so arrogant and condescending, it's almost impossible to listen to him. He's almost as bad as Charlie Rose. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. So he would have rubbed elbows with people like that. So Bergen got his undergrad degree from Yale. Now, he was not skull and bones, but close enough. He was a member of the Manuscript Society,
Hmm.
which is one of the dozens of other secret societies they have at Yale.
Yeah, they have their Book and Snake and other societies like that.
Yes. So, among other things, Gergen was a member of the World Economic Forum, the Council of Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
I
he's full
suppose,
scale compares conspirator. Hmm. Full scale conspirator. And when you conspire to overthrow the sovereignty of a country, you're a traitor. And there's only one sentence for a traitor, and that's hanging by the neck until dead. But go ahead.
ah,
Mhm.
oh,
Going to
if
jail.
you,
We're not going to jail. They're going to the hanging noose. That's where they're going.
okay, if you knew me better, you told me how you really felt.
I'll tell you one more thing. We're going to invite the family, invite the children, and they can watch these bastards swing in the hanging noose. And they say, "Hi, mommy, why is he doing that?" Because he was a traitor, son, and he caused the death of tens of thousands of our people. And that's what you're going to get if you're a traitor too. So he's not going to go join the Trilateral Commission because he saw hanging one day.
Um, and
Punishing crime, punishing crime thwarts it. But go ahead.
yes, and of course. And do you remember who founded the Trilateral Commission in 1973?
I think it was Zbigniew Brzezinski, or was it Rettinger?
Ah, you are correct, sir. It was Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Mhm. And it's Zbigniew Brzezinski that helped overthrow the Shah of Iran to put the Khomeini in power to then carry on whatever to make a boogeyman out of the people of Iran to start Hamas and Hezbollah and all that stuff. That's all from the CIA and their little appointee that would be these radical Shia clerics, quote unquote, all controlled by the Pope.
Okay, now I know we've talked about Brzezinski before. However, do you mind if I just spend a moment discussing him?
Please do.
Okay, so he was a devout Polish Roman Catholic. His family was
George, Senior Executive Service. Now it's came to me. That's the group that Fauci was a part of, and I'm convinced David Gergen was also part of the Senior Executive Service, which is about 7,000 people. They cannot be fired. The only way you get rid of them is to reduce their pay. But that's one of the great big blocks of power run by the papacy here, what I just mentioned to you.
okay. So Brzezinski, as I said, was a Polish-born devout Roman Catholic. So his family moved. He was born in 1928. I don't have his birthday in front of me. His family moved to Canada in the 1930s, and they settled in Montreal, where young Zbigniew went to Loyola High School in Montreal, and his daughter Mika attended Georgetown University. So,
Just little Jesuit coadjutors being prepared to take their place where the Jesuits want to put them in administering their American empire. It's real simple. It's just like
okay,
Rome. It's just like Rome.
okay. So later on, Brzezinski was served as national security advisor to Jimmy Carter,
Mhm.
and it basically,
And it's under Jimmy Cotta, the peanut farmer, 33rd degree Freemason, serving the Pope, that gave away our Panama Canal that took American blood and treasure and technology to build. And now we don't get one penny from any ship that passes through the Panama Canal. Isn't that nice? Further rapine of the American people. Go ahead.
okay. So, I mentioned David Gergen. Also, a couple weeks ago, Bill Moyer died, who
Here's another
was,
one.
yes, he was, I believe, Lyndon Johnson's second press secretary from 65 to 67, and he was about 90 years old.
It was Bill
And
Moyers. It was Bill Moyers that was the one responsible for removing the bubble top on the limousine so Kennedy could be shot and killed. That was Bill Moyers who did that.
yeah, I think you had mentioned that before. However, I had forgotten that.
Another
So,
despicable white devil working for the Pope. But go ahead.
okay, so Bill Moyers was Johnson's press secretary from 1965 to 67. Right after that, he became the director of the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, and he'd hold that position until 1974.
So, doing exactly what the Archbishop of New York tells him to do, because the Archbishop of New York controls the CFR out of New York City. It's like he
Ah,
controls the New York Federal Reserve Bank and the New York Yankees and any other significant operation going on in the New York Mafia Commission and anybody else that has any power in New York. That's what he controls.
ah. So, what is so? Quick question for you. Yeah, I should know this, but what is the job of the director of the CFR?
To direct it, to oversee its meetings, to invite its guests. You can get his annual report every year. And you can see all the members and all the corporate heads and all the corporations that are part of it. That's right.
Okay, so I understand from various sources, like according to Peter Ruckman, pretty much almost all your prominent media figures of the last half century were part of it.
That's
Walter
correct.
Cronkite.
That's correct. And another organization that proved that over and over was the John Birch Society. They put a lot of good information out on the empower the Council on Foreign Relations, but they never blame the Pope. They never blame the Jesuits.
Okay, so when I say prominent figures, you're talking about Walter Cronkite, Dan
Yes,
Rather,
everybody in the
Brokaw,
press, they're all intellectual prostitutes, as was said in the late 1800s by that one notable academic
and
investment. Yeah.
then
Mhm.
of course, you're talking about the aforementioned Charlie Rose
Oh, yeah.
and Jim Lehrer, I'm sorry, Jim Lehrer, Robert McNeil of the McNeil-Lehrer Report.
Yeah.
Anybody, any sort of talking head, Bob
Bill
Schieffer.
Buckley, Bill Buckley with his firing line, the great Bill Buckley. There's a movie on him now. It was on Netflix. And tells how he made it up and become important. And he really had to start after the Kennedy assassination. Yeah, because he was involved in the cover up, blaming Oswald and it's a single shooter. Buckley was a real conspirator. And by the way, he had Robert Vaughn on one of his firing lines, and Robert Vaughn blamed Spellman, I think, for the Kennedy assassination. And Buckley avoided that any mention of Spellman thereafter. And I think that was the last time Robert Vaughn was ever on the firing line.
Well, you are correct. That was his only appearance.
Yeah.
Now, I know we talked about the Robert Vaughn, uh, William F. Buckley interview back in 1967, July 6th or the 8th, whatever it was. And it was the guest he had on before that was Groucho Marx.
That Masonic Jew,
Yes, but
filthy mouth Masonic Jew who said something very filthy, and that was all. They took him off the TV for that.
okay. So you had Robert Vaughn, who was Napoleon Solo, or that's what I remember him as on the old TV show Man from Uncle. Now, of course, he was in other things like the Magnificent Seven and Towering Inferno and things like that. But
He was in another movie called Target Brass, where it was about the stealing of the Nazi gold by certain American troops. And when Patton was moving the Nazi gold, I think to Berlin, it was a story of that being robbed. And then it went into the assassination of Patton, how he was shot with a special bullet. And I believe that was shown prior to Bazata's confession that Patton had been shot. It was a $10,000 contract on him. He'd been shot by a rubber bullet. But anyway, they told us what they were doing in Hollywood with the movie called Target Brass.
okay, can I address the whole Robert?
Robert Vaughn was in it. Okay, well, go ahead.
Okay, can I address that interview that
Sure.
Robert Vaughn had on Firing Line back in 1967?
Yeah, sure.
And I thought, okay, I think this would be an example of what they called a limited hangout, which was coined by Victor Marchetti in
Victor
1971.
Marchetti, that filthy Italian Catholic swine who was deputy director of the CIA, who gave my Jewish friend Joel Bannerman a poison tie after Joel Bannerman wrote the tremendous book called Crimes of a President about George Herbert Walker Bush. And so this criminal, this punk, gave Joel a poison tie and gave him throat cancer. Joel later recovered, but that's what Victor Marchetti did. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so Marchetti coined the expression limited hangout in the early 1970s. Now, generally speaking, when people talk about that, they're usually discussing some sort of electronic format, radio, television, now the internet. But it could be a book, it could be a magazine or something. It's basically a platform that releases some truth and perhaps even mostly factual information. However, they don't give you the whole picture. Now, Robert Vaughn was an actor. He was in Hollywood for decades. And I think he was cleared by the CIA to share some truth about Vietnam, about Francis Cardinal Spellman, about his role.
Yep.
However, you had to spin it because you could get the impression that that was the only time where Spellman or the Catholic Church interloped in political affairs, U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we know the book, the American Pope, written by John Cooney in 1988, shows the power of Francis Cardinal Spellman in everything: politics, economics, Wall Street, CIA, you name it. So
Eh,
Robert Ball was treading on thin ice, and he probably knew not to go too far.
Well, okay, and of course, if you think about it, how many people actually watched the firing line when it was on? Virtually nobody. Probably less than 1% of the population.
It was more of
Because,
an intellectual academic exercise. My
yeah,
father used to watch it every time, and he really didn't like William F. Buckley. And but I do remember it, and Buckley always used to wag his tongue back and forth in his mouth, and but he was always trying to wax eloquent and defeat his opponent, no matter what his argument might have been, couched in some super eloquence that he was a master of.
okay, so you had to remember both. So Buckley, as you mentioned numerous times over the years, was a devout Roman Catholic, Knight of Malta, Skull and Bones. Now, I don't know what religious affiliation Robert Vaughn was, but I do know that he did have a military background. He was actually a drill instructor when he was in the army. So
Mm.
that in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean anything. But he is very much part of the club. He is
Oh yeah,
very much,
of course. You don't get anywhere in Hollywood unless you are. Hollywood belongs to the Jesuits. And so you're not becoming a great actor, a known actor, unless you're back with the Jesuits, like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Kevin Costner and all of them. Mhm.
and of course, this has been the case for about a century that in order to be an actor or an actress in Hollywood, you have to be part of an organization called SAG, the Screen Actors Guild.
Oh, yes. That's a
And there
nice
are other,
socialist communist operation.
I'm sorry,
That's a nice socialist communist operation. It's left
and
wing socialist. That's right. And you're not going to be in it unless you are one. That's their religion. Remember, socialist communism is a religion. It had
mhm.
nothing to do with reason or logic and common sense. It's a religion. It's what they want to shove down your throat. It's just like Romanism. There's no reason, logic, and common sense in Romanism. They just want to shove it down your throat. Transubstantiation. There any reason, logic, common sense about that? It's the same kind of stuff. Religious dogma. That's what communism is. But go ahead.
Okay, so this has been the case for about 100 years, 1925 or thereabouts. And they called it something else before they called it SAG. It was called the Masters Club, Masker Club. And if you look at the image of it, is a double-headed um, mannequin, like a clown. So it's a two-faced clown. So that was their symbol, which
Yeah,
has to do with Janus or Janus,
sure.
the two-faced.
Two-faced Janus. Yes, two-faced Romans Janus. Outward but false, secret but true.
So anyhow, you had to be part of the club. Now that's not just Hollywood, the big screen, movies and small screen television, but that has to do with the whole entertainment industry, music, comedy. You're not going to be getting major contracts and gigs unless you're part of some sort of organization. You have to have people backing you. Now, it is possible to be something like a stand-up comedian who is basically a free agent. But if you want to make any real money, you have to be under contract and you have to have an agent.
Yep.
Then you have to have people write your own material for you. So all these famous comedians we've had, well, last say 60, 70 years, whether you're talking about Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Bob Newhart, they had people writing their jokes for them, and
Yeah.
they're being told how to present themselves and how to present their material
Yeah.
because this is all part of the CIA mind control.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It's the theater. It's the Globe Theater on steroids. Totally controlling the stage, and we can't say certain things. That's why they suppressed the real author of the Shakespearean plays, who ran the Globe Theater. Edward de Vere. You can read about it in a book, The Star of England, written in 1952. It's almost 1,000 pages. But we're going to control it, and we're not going to let people know the real story because you can't handle the truth, George. Go ahead.
Well, exactly. So, I something I wanted to mention, to shift gears somewhat, is have you ever heard of the Brennan Justice Center at the University of New York Law School?
No, I haven't, but I can imagine it must be a real dastardly place named after Justice Brennan. Go ahead.
The devout Irish Roman Catholic Joseph, um, I'm sorry, William Joseph Brennan,
Yep.
who was actually, I just found this out. He was on the Supreme Court from 1956 to 1990, so 34 years. I didn't realize he was on the for that long.
Well, there ought to be a law that, when your brain starts to turn to tapioca, which is starting at about 75 or 80 or thereabouts, when you turn 75 on the Supreme Court, you got to resign, and somebody else needs to be appointed because they get that old and they're sitting there and they got impacted colons and they have all sorts of problems with their mind. They got brain fog. They don't belong there. They need to go. But somebody else who's younger and can think better and is not going to be a socialist or a communist wanting to destroy this place. Go ahead.
Okay, so it was established. Okay, so Brennan lived from 1906 to 1997, and as I said, he was on the U.S. Supreme Court from 1956 to 1990,
Mhm.
and so he was a devout Irish Roman Catholic. He went to mass every week, and so during his tenure, he made some of the most egregious rulings possible.
Yes, he
He
did.
was in the.
Yes, he
I'm
did.
sorry, you just get.
Yes, he did. Hold just a second. I'm going to hold this for a second, okay?
Oh, all right.
Okay, go ahead, George.
Okay, so in 1995, 30 years ago, the Brennan Center for Justice came into being, and it's under the auspices of New York University Law School.
Yes,
And
socialist communist monster. Uh-huh. Works in conjunction with Fordham. Hmm.
okay, so you mind if I provide some of the receipts for that?
Oh, please.
Okay, now the president of this organization is a Jewish gentleman by the name of Michael Waldman.
Yeah, so he's got one of the Pope's up front Jews. So we can blame the Jews for all the socialist communism rather than the Jesuits. Go ahead.
Okay, now that is the president. However, the director is a woman by the name of Christine Varney, and she got her law degree from Georgetown University.
Barney, that sounds like an Irish Roman Catholic.
I
I
lad.
know.
So you have this perfect Jewish Catholic Jesuit combo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's their favorite combination. Catholic trained by them and some Jew that's subordinate to them, that's Freemasonic or whatever, that loves the power that he can get and the financial prosperity he can get by serving the papacy. There's hundreds of them, thousands of them. You got 500 of them or so in the CFR annual report. It's a huge list of Jews in there, all busy serving the Pope to the detriment of their own people, to the betrayal of the Jews in Israel. It just continues. But go ahead.
okay. So what have they done over the last 3 decades? Well, the minimum wage is never high enough for them. So when it was $5 an hour, they said, "Oh, it needs to be six. Oh, it's six. It needs to be seven." And among other things, they
Yeah, well, you
oppose.
know what, George? There should be no such thing as minimum wage. That's all nonsense. If you're going to guarantee minimum wage, you better guarantee minimum profit. We're going to guarantee every
Oh, oh,
businessman have a minimum profit of whatever he does. That's just as insane as have a minimum wage. Let the wage be determined by the profits and the prosperity of the businesses. And then the employers, the private employers can say, I'll pay you this much based upon what we do in our business there, and let the market work. Why do we have to have socialism? Go ahead.
well, indeed. Well, that reminds me. We've talked about the mayoral race in New York City. Now, currently, Eric Adams is the mayor there, and people were saying this a few years ago when when Bill de Blasio was the mayor. They said New York City could not possibly elect anybody any worse than he is. Then Eric Adams came along. And people were saying, well, they could not possibly elect anybody worse than Eric
Eric
Adams.
Adams is a black guy, right?
Yes,
Okay. Whenever you put blacks in control of governments and cities, they go to hell in a handbasket. I don't know of any black leader that's caused prosperity to come to any city that he's become the mayor of. Not one. But go ahead.
okay, and he's also a known, confirmed Prince Hall Freemason, and he got his undergrad degree from Morris Brother College, which is Catholic, Poughkeepsie, or somewhere in upstate. Okay, I'm not looking up his bio. So he was Catholic educated, and he's a Freemason.
Yeah, just like the high Muslim leaders who are Freemasons and Catholic educated. I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned to you when I was in Israel the first time. I went to a Arab restaurant. They had wonderful food. They played Christian music that was very reverential, and his little girls came into the dining room there, and they were all dressed in Roman Catholic dresses and clothes. I said, "Do your children go to Catholic school?" He said, "Oh yes, they're the finest schools here." The Muslims all have their children educated by Catholic nuns and teachers. So when they get to a place of power, they're going to work with the papacy, just like these blacks. They're going to work with the Catholics, work with the papacy, no matter if they're Baptists or whatever. Go ahead,
Just
George.
like Will, just like Will Smith, he went to was it Notre Dame High School in LA County, even though he professes to be a Baptist. Just like Queen Latifah, she also went to the same high school.
hmm Yeah, they claim to be Baptists, but they're really Catholics.
Yes. Now, you know how we were just talking about the minimum wage a moment ago,
hmm
and for them, it's never high enough. It needs to be more. Well, one of the leading mayoral candidates in New York City is a fellow by the name of, I keep butchering it, Zoran Mondani. I keep saying Zoolander, but it's actually Zoran. And he's 33 years old. He was born on the 18th of October, 1991. And as I said, he's 33 years old. Now, that year is purely coincidental. There's nothing Masonic about it whatsoever.
Sure. We believe in coincidence, George. So this
Okay,
guy,
so
this radical that's running for New York mayor, is being paid for this. He's being backed for this. And that's exactly what the Jesuits want. So that when he is elected and all the cops resign, that's what, 30,000 cops in New York City, then that place will turn into a savage jungle. And that will call for the people to rescue us and help us. And then Trump will send in the military, have martial law, and save the day. And so this guy will have fulfilled his purpose. We have to start thinking dialectically, as the Jesuits think. Go ahead.
so I couldn't find anything suspicious about him other than his name. I mean, okay, well, just look at his name, Zoran Mondani. Without knowing anything about him, that creates agitation.
Yeah, for sure. That's why they put him out there. Yeah.
Okay, so, but I need to present something a little bit more concrete, which is his mom. Her name is Mira Nair, Nair. She's from India originally. Uh, Um, so, and she went to Loreto Convent in India, which is, I believe, in Bombay, if I'm not, or I could be wrong about the location. It was somewhere over in India. So she was trained by the Order of Loreto. I guess that's probably like, or the Congregation of Loreto is essentially Jesuits. They're like,
Sure. All the Roman Catholics are educated for the purpose of occupying places of power and influence to do the bidding of the Jesuit order through one of their intermediaries. That's all it is. Period. George, I got to go in 5 minutes, so let's go ahead and cover what we got to cover and get it done.
okay, so I guess I had more material to present. So maybe I should just give my contact information.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's end this, have contact information. And by the way, one of our supporters, Brother John, just sent you a gift. And so I need to send it to you in a check. So make sure you text your address or give it to me somehow so I can get that check to you. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. So if people have any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, they can email me at georgewidger1969 at gmail.com. That's GEORWID GER1969 at gmail.com. And if they didn't catch it, they can get it from you.
Well, hopefully. All right. Well, Brother George, thank you for being with us today. I have a book, Vatican Assassins, Wound in the House of My Friends. Please go to my website, vaticanassassins.org. Pick up a copy, ebook of Vatican Assassins. You can also go to 24/7 World Radio and pick up copies of my previous broadcasts for 11 years. Hopefully I'll get another radio station here one of these days. But if not, I enjoy these podcasts because I can have whenever I want to. We go as long as we want and we don't have any breaks. But anyway, you can send your gifts to rbpbdonate at comcast.net. That's rbpbdonate at comcast.net. Or for Cash App, just hashtag Eric, ERIC, John, JON, Phelps, PHELPS. That's hashtag Eric John Phelps for Cash App. And also you can send a check to RBT, P.O. Box 306, Newmanstown, Pennsylvania, 17073. So until we meet again, may the Lord bless you as you read his word of the great Protestant Reformation that birthed the modern era in political liberty around the world, but particularly England and North America, and the reading of the English AV 1611 Reformation English Bible in its present edition of 1769. So until we meet again, Lord bless. Maranatha.